It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control.
Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Ed Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Ed Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576. Or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.
Welcome to Inside Track with Bruce Ash and Ed Wilkinson on the Live the Dream Media Network.
Hey, live from Marana, Bruce Ash and
Ed Wilkinson.
welcome back. We have another action-packed Big Wednesday show for you today on Inside Track. Eb?
Hey, thanks for joining us today on Big Wednesday. We've got another great Inside Track show for you today. Joining us in just a few minutes,
We hope.
hopefully, former counselor to Richard Nixon, attorney and noted author and lecturer Geoff Shepard will share his new information about the Watergate affair, as well as the moves by the left to destroy another Republican presidency. In the second half of today's Big Wednesday, Tucson City Council candidate Jay Tolkoff joins us to discuss Tucson issues and his run to be a diverse voice on the Tucson City Council versus the craziness of the rest of the council members. Jay and Bruce are going to talk about the first time they met 40 years ago.
Yeah, actually 45 years ago.
Wow. Thanks for joining us on Live the Dream app or watching us on X, Facebook, YouTube, and any of our other platforms. To talk with us or our guests today, call us at 520-771-5101 or send us a message on Live the Dream Media Facebook site. And while Bruce is on the phone,
Okay. All right.
Bruce and I hope you'll continue supporting our great sponsors who help pay the man here
Okay.
at Live the Dream
Cool.
Media.
Thanks.
My great company, Wilkinson Wealth Management. I help families retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired. Our good friend Eric Rudin at Essential Pest. His team of professionals protects all manners of pests. Go ahead, Bruce. His team of professionals gets rid of all manners of pests, vermin, and weeds. Jamie Kipper from Tucson Iron and Metal Retail, and Bruce's three-generation company, Paul Ash Commercial Real Estate. When you call on any one of our supporters, please let them know you found about their business from Eb and Bruce here on Inside Track. And we are pleased to welcome our first guest today.
We hope.
We hope. Well, I'm going to defer to you, Bruce.
Geoff Shepard, are you there? I know he's waiting.
Well, while he's waiting, how's your day?
It's going to be better when Geoff is on the screen. So Geoff Shepard came to Washington in 1969 as a White House fellow. After graduating from Harvard Law School, he served on President Nixon's White House staff for 5 years, including a year as deputy counsel on the president's Watergate defense team. He has written 3 books about the internal prosecutorial documents he's uncovered, many of which are posted on his website, Shephard on Watergate.com. And he's been our guest. I think this is probably his 3rd or 4th visit to Inside Track. And we hope that he is, and I know he's trying to get in. Shay, have you made contact with him yet? Okay. Geoff, you need to unmute yourself, buddy. It's hard to say that to a lawyer, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also turn on your camera.
All right.
While he's doing that, have you paid attention to what's going on in places like Los Angeles and Boston with there's dozens of illegal aliens that are being nabbed? Hundreds
every week.
Yeah, and Boston Mayor Wu, she's like a criminal. I mean, she's just aiding and abetting these criminals. She is, and she talks about how Boston follows the law. Give me a break.
There's not a chance that's happening.
It is such a disaster. Geoff, are you there?
Oh, this is embarrassing. All right. Well, so it's hard to believe it's been over a half century since Richard Nixon left the White House. And when Geoff does join us, hopefully here shortly, we're going to talk about his impressions on that day, August 8th, 1974. Geez, I mean, that's just an amazing amount of time.
And I remember that time.
It's 51 years for crying out loud. I had been in Europe that summer. Actually, right before I left for Europe and went to the Maccabeah Games in Israel, Butterfield had just given his testimony about listening devices, which just lit the whole place up. And anyway, Eb, talk for a little while. I'm going to be right. Oh, there he is. Okay, it looks like we got him. Anyway, and just that whole affair just was a defining sort of a moment for me, having worked in the Nixon 1968 campaign, and then actively supported him and worked in the 72 campaign. And there we go, Geoff Shepard. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're on. We're
up and golden. I guess I was on too long and got cut off, but I'm good. I'm glad to be with you, Bruce.
Thanks. And we were just talking about, I think this is your 3rd or 4th visit with us. So thanks very much.
We were talking about what was going on back in 1974 and the fact that 51 years ago, who'd have thought? I was 15 at the time, and I was busy painting houses during the summer. And I remember the guy I was working for said, "You need to pay attention to this. This is history in the making." And, I didn't understand it at the time. I did pay attention, and looking back now, I'm glad I did.
And Geoff was right there. So Geoff, August 8th, 1974, when the president left the White House for his home in California, what about your personal recollections about that day? What was going through your brain and in your gut when you saw the president, I think it was in the East Room, and then left the White House to go to San Clemente?
Yeah, and just to be precise, he announced on the evening of August 8th that he would resign the next day. The next day, he said goodbye to his staff in the East Room. I was there. When you're in the middle of a battle, you can't stop and pinch yourself and say, wow, this is history. This is really important. You're just getting one foot ahead of the other, trying to cope with the moment. He was on the stage with his family, saying goodbye to his staff. And it was the first time he'd ever worn glasses in public.
Right.
It was real. It was real Nixon. Remember, he talked about his mother and that sort of thing. I was terribly upset because I was on the legal team and I was part of the group that misunderstood the smoking gun tape and thought that he had been helping to orchestrate the cover-up virtually from the very beginning. That was the suggestion of that tape. We were wrong, but I didn't know it at the time. So I went from the East Room out to the South Lawn, where he gets on the helicopter, takes off. And then he goes out to Andrews Air Force Base. He gets on Air Force One, flies west, and at noon, his resignation took effect. It was a one-sentence resignation letter. So he lands at El Toro Marine Base in California, a private citizen. And it stopped being Air Force One, we figure about over Wichita, right, was when that took effect. And then we went back into the East Room to see Jerry Ford sworn in as president. And then back across the street to the old executive office building and back to work. At the time, I was transcribing the tapes, and I was working 14-hour days because the Supreme Court 2 weeks beforehand had ruled that these 64 additional tapes had to be turned over, and I was the guy transcribing them. So it was heady times, but not happy. Right. You're just in shell shock.
So you've researched extensively on the Nixon presidency over many years, specifically about the acts by some Democrats and some Republicans also to remove him. You're part of a new documentary, How the Deep State Took Down Richard Nixon. Talk about that movie and how our audience can view it. I want to make sure that we get that out there right away.
Sure. Well, that's important. It was released last Tuesday of last week. So it's been available for about 7 days. So far, it's been downloaded 38,000 times.
I think it's 2,000 the last day or so I've watched it.
Well, I think so. You can watch it for free up until next Wednesday, up until a week from today. And you access it by typing War Room as one word, warroom.film, Film, and you go right in and you sign in with your email address and you can watch it. Now, after next Wednesday, a week, it'll cost you $9.99 to see it. But right now it's free and it's very, very popular. It takes a brand new approach to Watergate. And I think that's what has people interested. The producer, Michael Patrick Leahy, is going to law school. He's a journalist, but he's going to law school, and he got really interested in due process and the meaning of due process and how that worked. Because we talk about it a lot, but very few people can define it. It's kind of an amalgamation of court decisions and statutes and holdings, but it basically means a fair trial. And I identified 12 different violations of due process where a fair trial was denied to the Watergate defendants. Nixon himself never was tried because he resigned in disgrace there on August 9th, but his colleagues were brought before the Judge John Sirica in what's called the cover-up trial that started in October, and it lasted 3 months. And it was a time of intense political turmoil. The nation was divided and torn asunder. And at that time, under immense public pressure, the defendants were denied any semblance of a fair trial. And that's what this documentary goes through and shows people. And what makes it so interesting, Bruce, is these 4 terms today that we bandy about: deep state, fake news, false narrative, and most of all, lawfare. And they're used widely today. I maintain all 4 situations existed 50 years ago during Watergate. We just didn't use those terms.
So,
Geoff, I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
You've lived through the Watergate days. You've written about it, studied it, for the past 50 years. You were inside the belly of the beast during the impeachment process. Why has it taken so long for the truth to come out about the Democratic coup?
Two reasons.
It was.
Well, it was a coup. I mean, they voided the biggest landslide election in the nation's history. Nixon was reelected with 61% of the vote, took every state except Massachusetts and the district. But 2.5 years after that victory, he resigns in disgrace. He's driven from office. Why? Well, one, the media was monolithic. There was only one point of view, and the one point of view was not in favor of Richard Nixon. The other is the 4 top prosecutors in the Watergate Special Prosecution Force took their files with them when they left office. Now, we're not supposed to do that. Today we get upset with people who take official government records with them, but they did it, and they stayed hidden until well after these 4 people died. And the first of these sensitive documents first surfaced in 2013. And they were produced in response to my Freedom of Information Act request. So I got to see them. They're at National Archives now, but they weren't known to exist, weren't available to researchers. And I still remember that the day I went down to have a look, the ones that came up first were Leon Jaworski's files. He was the second special prosecutor. He was the special prosecutor when Nixon resigned and during the beginning of the cover-up trial. When you go to the National Archives, you have the opportunity to review the documents, but you can't just sit around and read them and think. You make a quick decision. Am I going to scan this memo or not? And it takes about a half a minute per page. So basically on site, I had copied about 400 pages, got home, printed them out, arranged them, put the memos in the right order, arranged them by date. And then I started to study them. And I said to myself, good heavens, the prosecutors were meeting secretly with a judge, with Chief Judge John Sirica.
Ex parte
meetings, private meetings to work stuff out in advance. There's one where they confirm it by letter. The 4 top Watergate prosecutors met with 2 federal judges, December 14th, 1973, in secret. And you don't have to have gone to law school to understand you can't do that. You can't have one side meeting in secret with a judge. There's a second meeting where their internal memo says, we want to do something. It's going to come before him for ruling. But if we don't warn him, he might rule the wrong way. So let's go pre-brief him. I mean, just imagine one side going to the judge and saying, now here's what we're going to bring up in a couple of weeks. We want you to understand it. So you rule our way. And then and this is all in writing. And then on the day the indictments were handed down, it was going to be a complicated day because they were going to unseal the indictment. They were going to announce the existence of this special secret sealed report called the Roadmap, because it would lead to Nixon's resignation. And they wanted to enable Judge Sirica to name himself to preside over the trial. And it was so complicated that Leon Jaworski went to Judge Sirica's chambers in advance of the hearing so they could rehearse their respective parts.
Because Judge didn't light a light bulb in the tree, was he?
No, he was. In his autobiography, he says he dropped out of law school twice. He never really understood the concepts. He was the most reverse judge in the D.C. circuit. His nickname was Maximum John because he would give the harshest sentences out that were possible under a statute. And the special prosecutors were leading him around by his nose. I mean, it was just the very idea that he was an independent judge presiding fairly and independently is a total misnomer. Now, Time magazine named him Man of the Year for his burglary trial, where he also appointed himself to preside. But you go through that record, it is just nothing short of incredible. I mean, it should have been reversed on appeal. Both cases should have been reversed on appeal. But what happened, Bruce, which is just astonishing, Archie Cox, the first special prosecutor, became so concerned with Judge Sirica's bizarre rulings that he feared they'd win at trial but get reversed on appeal before the D.C. Circuit. So he goes in secret to speak to the chief judge of the appellate court. And he urges him to hear all the cases with every judge participating so the liberal bloc will assure Sirica's never overruled. And if you go back through the record, there are 12 criminal appeals from Judge Sirica's Watergate holdings, and all 12 are heard by the circuit court with a full 9-judge panel. Never before or since in any court in America has that happened, with starting out with a full panel instead of the traditional 3 judges on appeal. Now go ahead.
And the en banc was a deliberate effort by the prosecutors and really the judge as well to make sure that there was no chance that Nixon would have a chance, or any of his co-defendants as well, right?
Absolutely. You see, there were, at the time of Watergate, there were 9 judges on the D.C. Circuit, 5 of whom were dyed-in-the-wool liberals under the control of the chief judge. But 4 weren't. So if they had a randomly selected 3-judge panel, it's possible you'd end up with 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat, and Sirica's rulings might be exposed for the frauds that they were. Cox's point was, what you ought to do is have the full court from the get-go, so you'd always have those 5 votes. And those 5 votes upheld every one of the 12 appeals. Now, the other killer on that was Judge Sirica's law clerk, Judge Bazelon's law clerk, was in the room at the time. And he told another judge much later on how this had happened. So we got his story, and then we have the fact that the 9 judges sat for each of the panels. I mean, just astonishing to realize.
And it's one situation after another. That it wasn't just a random sort of a event that occurred. That would have been bad enough. But this was repeated bad behavior.
That's what this movie does. That's what this movie does. It identifies 12.
And I've never seen this kind of evidence before. I mean, this is strikingly awful. I mean, in a constitutional republic such as we are, to have this type of judicial malfeasance and corruption to try, it's not that any of this would be good having been done to anybody, but this is to the President of the United States and the office itself that this is going on.
Yep. And the movie, how the deep state took down Richard Nixon, details those 12. We call it the dirty dozen of due process denials, and it lays it right out. Now, if you want to learn more, and some people do, because you get curious about this stuff, all the documents I've uncovered, because my case is based on unsealed documents. They're all posted on my website. So your viewers can go on to shepherdonwatergate.com, and all of the documents are posted there. So we're not arguing about whether there was an ex parte meeting, because they've written documents in their own hand that confirm it.
Yeah, these guys are so brazen. They documented the ex parte meetings that they had. I mean,
well, they were a specially recruited, selected group of Ivy League elites, the top 17 of whom had worked in the Kennedy Johnson Department of Justice. This is just astonishing. Nixon wins re-election, but his Attorney General, Elliot Richardson, gladly gives away any responsibility or oversight for prosecuting the case and he puts it in the hands of ardent anti-Nixon Democrats, and they proceed to tear the president limb for limb. They suppress exculpatory evidence. They meet secretly with a judge. They expand the use of statutes to go after people. They announced, this is the specially recruited Watergate Special Prosecution Force, when the case became highly politicized. They announced at their first press conference back in May of 1973 that they would review every single allegation of wrongdoing made against the Nixon administration from the moment it took office. This wasn't a Watergate investigation. This was a legal pogrom. I mean, It just, again, just astonishing. And the press wouldn't cover that part because the press were gleefully eager to bring down Richard Nixon.
And just and as an add-on to the unfair advantage that the prosecution had at the Senate special hearings, they obviously had Nixon haters represented by the Democrats on that panel. But even the Republicans, Lowell Weicker and Howard Baker, and was it Henry Talmadge? I mean, they were no fans of Nixon.
It wasn't Talmadge. It was the senator from Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Gunther, Guernsey, something like that.
Yeah, Guernsey.
But the Democrats outnumbered the Republicans on the committee, just like J6.
Right.
So everything was going to be done that way. And Lowell Weicker, nominally a Republican, he said the reason he wanted to get on the panel was to sink Richard Nixon. And Howard Baker, who was the ranking Republican, made a decision very early on that for his political future, because he wanted to run for president someday, his political future was better, not if he defended Richard Nixon, but if he appeared to be an honest inquirer for the truth. And that meant you had ardent Democrats going after Nixon and no Republicans defending him. We couldn't get our story out. And of course, the media is the same thing. The Time names Sirica Man of the Year. They turned John Dean, the president's lawyer who stabbed him in the back, they turned him into a supposedly innocent whistleblower, and he's the one that ran the cover-up.
Yeah, and you've argued that about John Dean. We've talked about that on prior shows. He was the rat in this whole thing. He was trying to protect himself, and in fact, he was convicted, if you will, of certain crime. He literally spent zero time serving any kind of a sentence at all, and that was also Sirica's doing as well, correct?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I recently came across an oral history done by the lead FBI agent throughout Watergate, a guy named Angelo Lano. Right. And he says, for this oral history taken by the National Archives, that he credits John Dean with 95% of the cover-up. And as you say, John Dean was sentenced nominally before the trial to 1 to 4 years in prison, but he never served it. He was kept in a witness holding facility just for the duration of the trial. And right after the Watergate defendants were convicted, John Dean was set free. So you have the central actor in Watergate, in bringing it about and in running the cover-up, walking free. And the public doesn't know this. This wasn't reported because John Dean was cast as a hero.
So we gotta close out here. Just a quick question from you.
Okay, you brought up J6. Talk about the multiple attempts to remove Donald Trump. What connects the 74 attempts to remove Nixon and most recently Trump 1.0?
Great question.
Well, there's so many parallels. There's this great quote from Mark Twain that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And what you get today, and I'm no expert on what's been attempted against President Trump, but you get much of the same sorts of things. People who hate him so much that they're willing to cheat to keep him off the ballot. And Nixon had already been reelected. In the effort with Nixon, it was to void that election and get Nixon off the ballot. Nixon had been hated by the Eastern liberal establishment since he took down Alger Hiss in 1946. And they got him. See, now Trump survived. Nixon did not survive, but the Democrats controlled the Congress, and the media was speaking with just one voice. So it was different, but it's the same vicious lawfare that we saw 50 years ago.
Geoff Shepard, Watergate scholar, dogged investigator to find the truth out about the deep state plotting and collusion to take down President Richard Nixon and create, in their own way, a national nightmare. Tell our audience one further time how to watch your new film.
Yeah, you access the documentary, War Room, one word, warroom.film, FILM, and you'll bring it right up, and it's a 90-minute documentary. It'll knock your socks off.
Thank you, Geoff. Thanks for your work. You are a patriot. Thanks for coming on the show again today.
Good to be with you, Bruce.
All right. When we return, we'll spend the balance of today's Big Wednesday broadcast with Jay Tolkoff and his campaign to become the voice of diversity in Tucson, Arizona. No channel flipping. You're watching and listening to Inside Track with Eb and Bruce on the Live the Dream Media Network.
You're listening to Inside Track with Bruce Ash on the Live the Dream Media Network. Now a word from our sponsor.
It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control.
Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Eb Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Eb Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576. Or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.
Welcome back to Inside Track with Bruce Ash on the Live the Dream Media Network. Now back to our show.
Welcome back to Inside Track with Bruce and Eb. This portion of the show brought to you by Wilkinson Wealth Management. Eb helps gun owners with their retirement accounts. He does a great job for our family, and he'll do the same for yours. Call him today at 520-777-1911. Eb.
Hey, Inside Track is also brought to you by Bruce's 60-year-old, three-generation commercial real estate company, Paul Ash Commercial Real Estate. They make good things happen every day. And we hope you'll also call on our friend Eric Rudin, his great team at Essential Pest Control. You can rely on Essential's pros. Call them today at 886-3029 to protect your home or business from all manner of pests, vermin, and everything else. I got to tell you, Bruce, my office still pest-free.
Doggone it. That's good.
And finally, if you need steel products for your home, business, or ranch or farm, call Jamie Kipper at Tucson Iron and Metal Surplus. They are Tucson's conservation specialists. Call them at 209-1576 or go to the yard at 701 East 36th Street. You're going to be amazed by the great products sold there at wholesale prices.
Eb and I are pleased to welcome Republican nominee for the Tucson City Council, Jay Tolkoff in Ward 6, who along with Janet Wittenbreaker in Ward 3 are running as the diversity candidates in the 2025 City Council election. Did you ever think that you would be a diversity candidate?
It wasn't on my goal list.
Well, welcome to the show. As we know, Tucson City Council is currently populated by 7 hard left Democrat socialists, including the mayor. Most of their votes are unanimous, everyone in lockstep with the mayor. Your opponent, who has been endorsed by the Democrat Socialists of America, is a hard lefty herself. Janet's opponent, also a hard lefty. The current council espouses the virtues of the left in nearly every action they take. We know that. We live in this town together. They believe in diversity, but that's not how they roll when it comes to being diverse on the city council. Did you ever think that diversity would be an issue in your election, breaking this stranglehold that they have on the city?
Well, it's pretty much one of the main reasons I'm running is because, diversity is a good thing. Diversity of thought is a better thing. And there is no diversity of thought on the city council. Pretty much everybody is, as you said, they have the same ideology. They look at things the same way. And as a result, the ideas are narrowed to a very limited scope, and we don't look at a lot of things that we could be looking at that would be better ideas to move this city forward.
Exactly. Yep.
So you've led an interesting life. You've gotten a lot of things done. They look at you as a get-it-done kind of guy. Besides being a card-carrying leftist, what has your opponent ever done to make Tucson believe that she's behind them?
I just was with Miranda at an event just about a half an hour ago, and I'll say, she's a lovely woman. We get along well. I think that's a great thing that we can have that kind of camaraderie. But the reality is that I've got an extra 20 years on the planet that she has, and I've done a lot more. Where she's been a tenant, I've been a tenant and a landlord. She's been an employee. I've been an employee, an employer, an executive.
You've signed the front of the checks.
I've signed the front of the checks. I have much more experience as far as lived experience, to use one of their words, than she does. And it's ironic that the job that she has is at KXCI FM, which arguably might not even be on the air today had I not volunteered and was the president of that organization from 1986 to 1989. And when I got there, they were on the verge of going dark. They were in violation of FCC rules. The license was in jeopardy, and financially they were a wreck. And 3 years later, I left, have never looked back. And 36 years later, they're still on the air. And a lot of people go, well, that does. It's a very left media outlet. How is it that, well, because I'm not really a left or right guy. I'm like a middle of the road guy. And had I had my druthers, I would be rather run as a person and not as a Republican or a Democrat or a Libertarian. We're the last charter city in Arizona to have partisan elections on a local level. And that is to maintain a power structure which is not benefiting the people of Tucson.
So when you get elected, I don't want to say if you get elected, but when you get elected, you're going to be in the minority.
Absolutely.
So how do you stand up against the mayor and the rest of the council?
Well, as somebody, I think in this room said, I don't think you'll have any problems handling them. I think they're going to have a problem handling you.
That's good news for Tucson.
Yeah. The thing is, when I was running Domino's Pizza, I had to deal with a lot of different PR events, shall we say, and I know how to work the press or work with the press, and I think that Regina Romero, if anything, she's really done a great job at is wielding power, and she's done that using marketing and using the media and other means. But I don't see myself being able to get my policies through. But as Steve Christie said to me, at least you can get people thinking about it. And I think that, if a city council person goes to the press with a press release, I don't think they're going to ignore it. I think they'll actually take note, and we need to get that information out to people. There's just too many things that are being done improperly, almost in a clandestine manner. I can list example after example, and Plan Tucson 2025 is just the latest example of, hey, look over here, but we're really doing this over here.
So there's a lot of talk about City of Tucson buying TEP.
Yeah. Now this is a city that did away with its road department because they can't manage the roads on their own.
How likely of an undertaking is that going to be?
Well, it's interesting that we were sitting here, I just got a message from the CEO of TEP. I just met her this morning. I built a house. I'm a retired person, but when you know anything about construction, you're never retired because there's always somebody that says, "Can you help me out with this?" So I built a house out in North Hollywood, which is the LA area, and the LA DWP, which is power and water in LA, is owned by the city. And $100 million a year floats into the city's general fund because of that. So, in concept, that sounds like a great idea. But we're talking about a public utility that if it's not managed properly, people will die.
Yeah.
That's the fact. Air conditioning stop, people will die. We don't seem to be able to manage the simplest things like our parks and our streets. I just don't see it being realistic. I think it's something that we need to move towards because it would be great. There's no question about it. It would be fantastic if we could actually get that profit and put it to use in our city. But the question is do you have the management skills to make that happen? I don't see that. I see mismanagement on many, many different levels throughout the city, and it's been that way for years.
In theory and practice are the same. In practice, they're not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most everything government touch turns to crap.
Yeah, well.
So let's talk about something almost no one knows about, which the city council you want to be part of wants voters to approve. Plan Tucson 25. What is it and why is it being rushed out for a proposition vote, an approval vote in November 25's election?
Well, if there's one thing that I learned in my career is don't assume if you don't know, if you don't know it, say, I don't know, but I'll find out about it. I'm really in a learning curve on it. Apparently, there's a statutory requirement from Arizona State that charter cities present a plan to deal with growth on a 10-year basis. A lot of communities are out to 2045 already. Tucson is behind the 8 ball, and apparently, from what I understand, and I may be incorrect, but it should have been done 2 years ago. So there's a little bit of a gun to the head of Tucson to get this done. And what it does is it basically sets forth, the statute requires you to, the cities to say, how are you going to deal with growth? How are you going to deal with water? How are you going to deal with the management of the people coming in, power, all those infrastructure things that come into play? And as a result, we have an almost 300-page document called Plan Tucson 2025. And it's questionable as to whether or not it actually addresses the things that are required by statute. It really is more like an ideological
sounded like a wish list to me.
Yeah, well, it starts out by saying that, this is about making Tucson more climate resilient, equitable, and with transparency and governance. Well, those are great ideals, but those aren't goals. Those are ideals. So there's a big difference between a goal and an ideal. So then the worst part about it is it's being brought forth with this 2 years of community input. They reached out to all the corners, but if you actually look at the numbers,
about 700 people replied.
Right, and
how many people live in Tucson?
Well, it's less than 0.2% of the population. And I've been speaking to people that were involved on the community import part, the commissions and they're telling me that when they were brought into these meetings, they likened it to being cattle in a cattle chute, where you were directed this way. Anything that was outside the scope of what the city leaders wanted was pretty much shoved to the side, and the whole process was basically it was a function of, we want to get the information to support what we already know we want to do. And now, once again, I'm just talking to people that were involved. I don't have any direct knowledge, but if I look at the document, I can kind of see that happening, because it really doesn't address the things that are important to the people of Tucson. For instance, neighborhood preservation, I think, is a huge issue to the people of Tucson. There's about 4 pages that's dedicated to that, and it really doesn't say we're going to preserve it. The overriding thing is that it seems like this document, with the permission of the people, if they vote for it, will actually give the leadership and the bureaucracy the ability to do whatever they want. So
do you think there'll be less input by citizens here in Tucson?
Absolutely. Yeah, they don't need it. They won't need it anymore. They won't need that input. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing in the document.
So they bring the people in. They say, here's what we want to do, and you want us to do this, right? I mean, that's pretty much what they're doing. They're telling the people, here's what we're doing, get on board.
Well,
they're not saying, what do you think? Because you asked me, I'm a business owner in the city of Tucson at Tanque Verde, Sabino Canyon. At the bus station, in the past month, there's been like 4 stabbings.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of ranks up there a little bit higher than a lot of other things.
Yeah, and those things are not addressed in a nuts and bolts manner. And that's where the statutory requirements may not be being met. Now, I really don't know what the statutory requirements is. It's like, it seems to me that it's one of those statutes that has no teeth in it. You have to do this, but if you don't do it, then nothing really happens.
Right.
But as I say, it really kind of seems like that this will be presented to the people of, this is a great plan. We're going to deal with climate resiliency and equity, and it's going to be, we're going to have shady streets.
Are those things in the city charter?
No.
So it's an extension of the Green New Deal.
Yeah, it is in that direction, it seems to me. But once again, it doesn't address the needs of the people of Tucson that are asking for this very loud and clear. People in Tucson say, we want you to deal with homelessness. There's really nothing in there that says this is how we're going to deal with homelessness, because it's not going to get worse. I mean, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse.
Right.
We've incentivized homelessness in Tucson. Come to Tucson and we'll give you a free house with wraparound services. The numbers have gone up since we started Housing First, dramatically, 66% in the last 5 years. Yeah, that's a huge increase. And there's other states that it's dropping.
So let's talk about the things that they credit Plan 25 to include. Opportunity. Well, there's less opportunity for good jobs in this town than there's perhaps been in many, many decades. What have they done with it so far? I mean, there's nothing in that plan that shows me that, other than talking about creating opportunity, any of that's going to happen. Where we live, how we get around, quality of surroundings. Everywhere you drive in Tucson, there's trash on the side of the road. There's cars on jacks, in yards. This is not a very attractive town. And Jay, they don't call us the Dirty T for nothing. I mean, that's just a fact.
With the last initial of T, I think I'm offended by that.
I would be also. Fair and open government. That's the thing that really gets me, because these guys do whatever the hell they want to do.
Yeah.
And they've been doing it this way because they have 6 votes. There's no diversity, and they have a mayor who's pushing down. This is her agenda that she's running. This is the last one. Just cracks me up. Keeping people healthy. we're probably going to have close to 200 murders in the city in 2025. We've had beatings, we've had knifings, we've had
Machete attacks,
assaults, machetes, and so on. We have people, there's probably 100 cars that, have gone 80 miles an hour down a road designed for 45 miles an hour that flip over, and they don't just goof themselves up in their cars, they screw somebody else up at the same time. These guys haven't really had any concern for keeping us healthy, in addition to the murders. It's not just the driving on the street, it's the murders mainly that I think people are so tired of.
Yeah, I agree.
I know there's a question. I know there's a question in there someplace.
Well, let's talk about the roads and the transportation. I mean, the roads out here suck. It's going to take another 20 years for Grant to be done being constructed.
Well, they're out of money on that, I understand.
Well, one of the problems that I see in the city of Tucson is that, and this goes way before the current administration, is they tend to research everything to death, and they spend all their resources researching. And as the longer you're
hiring consultants to do it,
right?
So it takes the responsibility off of them,
right? But the longer that you built things out, the longer you wait, usually the more expensive it gets. There's all kinds of costs that get involved in waiting. And from what I have seen from the RTA plan, the Grant Road was supposed to cost about $70 million. The new cost is up around $170 million, only because they just blew it off and postponed and delayed and went out. At some point, you just have to make a decision. And you can't make everybody happy. There's always going to be somebody somewhere that says, well, I don't really like this. But, you have to look at the better good for the community. And we're not doing things that are in the best interest of the community. And it shows in our economy. A report just came out that we have the fourth worst housing market in the country. And that makes no sense if you listen to the people in the city that are saying we have a shortage of houses. Well, if we have a shortage,
usually means that the prices are hiked up, right?
Right. But really, what it says to me is two things. The one I'm not really too concerned about, but outside investors aren't looking at Tucson as being a good market to go to, and I think they had a lot to do with driving the prices up.
So when you say the fourth worst housing market,
houses will sit on the market. You want to sell your house, it will sit on the market for an exceptionally long period of time.
So if you're a buyer, that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
But if you're a seller, that sucks.
Right. But what it says to me is we don't have enough people in this town that have a job that pays enough that can buy those houses. That's, we've turned into a service industry. We've lost so many employers over the 50 years I've been here. Sure, we'll always have medical, but I mean, just when you look at the new businesses that open, it's usually in hospitality. It's the restaurants and things of that, and businesses that I was in. But where's the new industry that's coming into town? It's not. They're actually leaving, and that's been going. There's been that drain for a long time. We graduate all these people from the University of Arizona, and I guess typically speaking, people that graduate from a university, about 80% of them move to a different jurisdiction. The problem is we're not pulling in that 80% that moves out and into our area. They're going to other regional areas that suit their needs, but they're skipping Tucson because opportunity just isn't here.
Yeah, the people that move to Arizona or stay in Arizona are going up to Phoenix, Glendale, those areas.
Mm-hmm.
So Jay,
a good friend of mine I just found out is moving to Scottsdale in another month because better job or opportunity in the medical profession.
Jay, we've talked sort of around the crime issue here in the city of Tucson. Talk about how local crime has personally affected you.
Well, I moved my mother to Arizona when she was 98, about 7 years ago, and the house that I grew up in was the house that I moved her out of. In the 60 years she was there in bad New Jersey, not a broken window, not any graffiti, no break-ins, no robberies, anything like that. In 2002, I thought about leaving Tucson because I had tracked that my business or my house had been broken into every year for the last 10 years. And the capper was I had a 3-month-old Ford F-350 I was with my son, who was about 2 at the time, and we walked into a Walmart up at the Foothills Mall to go buy some things because we were going to go down to Mexico for the weekend. And we came back, and the truck was gone. And it was found on the west side of town 6 months later. And the only reason that it was reported was because it had an alarm system and the battery was going dead. So my vehicle sat on the west side of town for 6 months, and I got paid the insurance, and it was like, enough is enough. I had a 3-month-old truck, and it was, and when I called right away to say, hey, let the highway patrol know. Oh, we don't worry about that kind of stuff. It was just gone. That was it, and nobody really cared. But my personal house that I lived in, 26 times it's been burglarized in 11 years. And the police are just like, well, what are we going to do? And I said, I have an alarm system. That doesn't matter. And the thing was that my neighborhood was being targeted by groups of people, and my neighbor got burglarized 3 times. And as it turns out, during that period of time, when it was really bad, I got burglarized 8 times in a 2-week period.
Sweet.
Yeah, 3 times in one 24-hour period. And what was being stolen, like clothing, toilet paper, stuff that you would expect to be affiliated with somebody that is unhoused. And they didn't care. As soon as we left, they just break back in and keep going and getting more and more stuff. But there's something I'm completely not familiar with whatsoever. And when a lieutenant said to me, maybe you should think about getting an armed guard for my house, and I did. I actually did get an armed guard, and he did intervene in a break-in about a week later, and there were some weapons that were fired, and that kind of ended the problem at my house. But who wants to live like that? And I got pulled over by this officer for making an illegal left turn at 11:30 at night. I turned into the center lane rather than the median lane, and we had a conversation about it. He was the cop that worked my neighborhood, and he didn't even know about any of those problems. And I don't blame the police, because they just don't have the resources to stay on top of the amount of calls that they get. We need to fully fund our first responders. And we have an impending crisis with the fire department that nobody's even talking about.
What's that?
Well, they're about at 650 firemen, paramedics, EMTs, and they should be at 750, but that's not too bad. I mean, it's only off 15% or so. But the problem is half of that 650 is eligible for retirement in the next 2 years. And if they take that up, now we have a real problem. And we're not recruiting very well because other jurisdictions are paying more with less work. Who doesn't like less work and more pay?
And if you're elected, that would be something that you'd be focusing on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's spelled out in the city charter, and we seem to ignore the city charter.
We don't stop thinking about climate change and all the other Green New Deal things, but the city charter, which is what they're supposed to do as a city council, no dice.
And I've said this over and over again. When I bought my house that I live in now in 1989, I went to the city because I wanted to do a gray water system because the way my house was laid out, it made sense. And they laughed at me. You'll spend $30,000 getting a Department of Environmental Quality to study to do that. Nobody's doing that. Well, now they're doing it. So I believe in that. I think we need to be mindful of the environment because it's where we live. But as I've said in my campaign, we seem to be more concerned about the environment on a large scale worldwide. But look at our washes. We're not even taking care of that part of the environment.
No.
And when we allow camping in washes, the trash and the human deposits
feces
that are made, that all is, the washes are like the entrance to our watershed and our groundwater supply. It just seems to me that well, if we're worried about global climate change, we should be worried about our washes because that affects us here. And it goes back to the thing that I keep telling people when I'm on campaigning. It's like the people on the city council have a lot more to do with your life than the president of the United States. And I believe that, it's okay to be mindful of climate change, and we should do things that don't contribute to it and move in the direction of being better stewards of our air quality and our water and things like that. But when that is your driving decision maker all the time, you lose sight of what you need to focus on here.
Jay Tolkoff, Republican nominee in Ward 6. His opponent is a dedicated socialist. If you think our council is awful already, this lady will take us to a whole new meaning of bad government. Thanks for joining us today, Jay Tolkoff. We'll be talking again soon. Hey, fellow Tucson knuckleheads, when you get your damn mail-in ballot, vote for the guy sitting across from me. Vote for Janet Wittenbreaker also, and say hell no to Plan Tucson 25, whatever it says in there. There's a good reason to vote no. This thing will do the opposite of everything that they promise. So they want to help finish off any chance of Tucson has to succeed. Do not leave your ballot sitting on your kitchen table. Vote for the damn thing. Ab, take us home.
Hey, all of our Inside Track podcasts are available on Live the Dream Media's Facebook page, YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and X. Thanks for joining us on Inside Track. Until next Wednesday, when we return with our UK correspondent, Adrian Brettel, that guy is smart, and local activist Donald Smith. This is Eb Wilkinson.
And Bruce Ash.
Be sure to join us again in 167 hours.
You're listening to Inside Track with Bruce Ash on the Live the Dream Media Network. Now a word from our sponsor.
It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control.
Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Eb Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Eb Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576. Or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.